listening to Cooper Talk.
Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guest. And we have a great show today. This gentleman, and he's been on so many soap operas, but he was also on It's Garry Shandling show, which is a show I loved, and he was on Twin Peaks, and he has a big event coming up this Friday, I believe, in Burbank, and November 16th and 17th, I think, he's going to be at Uncle Vinnies in Point Pleasant, which is about an hour away from me. And in fact, I'm going to be down at that shore next weekend. I'll be down in Asbury Park, which is next to it. And my guest is Ian Buchanan. How you doing, Ian?
I'm good. Thank you, Steve. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me here.
You're welcome. So tell me about Friday. It's the blast from the past. It's Bold and the Beautiful and the Young and the Restless. What is it? 'Cause I saw you post about it, and people are flying in, and it looks like a really fun event.
Yeah, it's yes, it is fun. They just had the General Hospital one this past weekend. I think they call it Past Cast. The Bold and Beautiful and Wine are combined, and they do their it's kind of interesting. It's all people that were sort of like fairly front and center of the show for years, and that fans still remember, and they like to see, and they do come in. They come in for a whole weekend of, I think there's the I'm calling it Cast and Furious on Friday, and then Saturday is the main event for, I think, Y&R or B&B, and then Sunday's the main event for the other show. So it's a whole weekend. So people fly in and they have a great time. They're great fun to do. And I haven't done them for a while, of course, because we had COVID and everything else got in the way. So it's going to be quite nice. I haven't done anything like this for probably 3 or 4 years. So I'm kind of excited.
How crazy are the fans? Because I've had Teo Penglis on twice, and every time he comes on and I tweet about it, his fans go nuts. They're like the nicest fans. And with soap opera, you people have the best fans. I mean, you must be just adored when you're at these shows.
Well, yes. I mean, it's well, the fact that after all these years, I kind of know each and every one of them, which makes it kind of there's a very solid fan base for soap operas, and a lot of them are families, like sometimes 3 generations of families who've all, come up watching soap operas. So they're great. I mean, there's, obviously there's not enough time for everybody to get everything that they would like to get, but that's always the case. It's just the way it is with everything. So
now what's with the Uncle?
I hear that at home too. So it's like, no, I go. So it's not it's all the same. So.
Okay, so and tell me about the Uncle Vinnies. Now, do you guys get up and do stand up, or do you tell stories, or because that's the
no, we it's kind of interesting because it all depends on the mix of people and. It kind of just sort of becomes like a great, I think we're doing 4 that weekend, the 17th and the 18th. And Kathleen Garry, who's great fun and great energy. And the one other girl I don't know, but Mark, I do know. And we just kind of bounce off each other. The last time I did a whole go-around of them, there was a lovely Jacqueline Zeman and Emma Sands and Tristan and Kin Schreiner, and it's kind of fun. I think they called that the Legends. They're not calling this the Legends. I'm not sure what they're calling it, but no, we don't do stand-up. But it just ends up being kind of, you start just telling stories that people maybe have heard before, want to hear again. Or just on-set stuff that people love to hear. So it's always always great fun. So I'm actually very much looking forward to that, having not done anything. Friday, of course, I'll get my feet wet, and then come November, hopefully I'll get my feet cold because I'll be not in California and be on the East Coast. But I'm I'm excited to see everybody, and I know I'll probably know most people there, so it'll be lovely. It'll be really quite nice.
Now, you've had a very successful acting career. As a kid, did you always want to act? I mean, what was your path to becoming an actor? Because a lot of us have imaginations when you're younger. Anyone who is in the creative field, we have imaginations, things like that. But when did you start with the idea that you could act?
I don't know. I think a lot of my motivation was just I didn't want to be stuck where I was. I think, with no offense to the people I was surrounded by, but I knew there was a big world out there and there was other things to do. And I never thought acting was the way to do it, but I knew it would involve probably something that would involve, traveling. And I initially got to do that by modeling and being able to, live and work all over the world, which was a great opportunity. And that kind of led into acting. But I wasn't sort of motivated to become an actor. I always had a great imagination, but I never, that was never my ambition. It's something that came up and I liked it, and then I became fairly good at it, and then I kind of relaxed into it and really enjoyed it, and have enjoyed 40 years of it, or over 40 years of it. So, yeah. But I never, as a kid, said, "Oh, I want to be on." We didn't have television, so I never said I want to be on television, because that wasn't a realm of, or would never enter my mind. So, so it was just kind of an evolution. Things just progressed, and so that's.
How did you get into modeling? Because I always think like modeling's like the coolest job. You sit there, they fly around. You guys always dress great. I mean, that's one thing I noticed, on Facebook. You're one of those guys that you're just dapper. You look good. Like, you wear a nice suit and you look good. I wear a nice suit and I look slumpy. But you could have like a burlap bag and you'd be looking, svelte. But so how did you get into modeling? Did someone say to you, "Man, this guy is very handsome. We want to put you on the screen"?
Yeah. Yeah, I was young and I lived in Scotland, but I had gone to Spain and was on vacation, and then decided to go back to Spain and spend a longer time. And while I was there, somebody approached me and said, could we take some photographs? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And they did, and then I started working. So that's sort of, that's how that began.
So you end up, what gets you over to the States? What brings you
Eileen
over?
Ford.
Okay, so Eileen Ford, the biggest agency, it's like, it's not like you're coming over to say, "Hey, I'm here to maybe get a job waiting tables till I get an audition." So Eileen Ford contacts you and says, "Hey, Ian, come on over. Come over."
Joey Hunter, who was one of the partners at Ford Models, was in London doing I guess what they call a talent scouting, and he had an open call, and I had the idea that I wanted to come to the States. And I thought, well, I'll go meet Joey. And, that I wasn't 6'2", and I wasn't kind of really what I think their idea of, a kind of New York male model was. But when I went to meet Joey, he said, I think, yeah, we would like to have you. And they arranged it. They arranged my first work visa. And they brought me over, and I used to always joke, which she hated, but I'd always say Eileen Ford brought me over on the Mayflower, but she didn't like that. And after a while, she asked me not to say that, because I think the first time I said it was when it was Regis and Kathy Lee. And of course, Eileen was like very upset by that. I was like, okay, but then I did say it again on a nighttime talk show, and then I got another message from somebody at Ford saying, "Mrs. Ford says, please do not say." But she's no longer with us, so now I say it all the time.
So you're modeling away, and you get with the Ford agency. Where do you first reside in New York? And was it your first time to New York when you came to visit?
Yes, it was. Yeah, I'd been to California. I'd come here to work doing catalog. That I had never been to New York, and it was 1980, and I literally relocated to New York and started work almost immediately. But then sort of, I don't know, I just, New York, like Lee Strasberg, Actors Studio, I got this kind of a sort of notion to check things out, and I did. And I went to the Strasbourg to the Institute, and Lee was still around then. It was very exciting. And I liked it. I really liked it. But, my agents at the Fords were like, well, you can't, you're modeling, you have stuff lined up. But then my one agent, who was very supportive, she left and started her own agency, took me with her, and she encouraged me. She actually found my first manager, who was Jeremy Ritzer, who kind of signed me. And he was a big casting person, but he signed me to his management company. And I studied at Strasbourg, and then as a foreign student, got to audit the Actors Studio, but then got to work there. And that was just very exciting. And so by 84, I started working as an actor, 85 mostly. And then from there, was moved out here to do General Hospital in 86. So it all it seemed like it didn't happen very quickly, but it happened very, very quickly. So
well, you come from modeling, and you're taking the Strasbourg, you're taking acting classes.
Yes.
So what is it like for you, and if you remember, the first time you're on a set? Because it's different. There's marks. You have to hit your mark. As an actor, you're probably used to being in class. And I know some people sit there and they go, wait a second. All of a sudden, there's a camera here. There's a camera here. There's background walking back and forth. And you're used to, taking acting class, or if you did theater. Do you remember your first day on set? And were you terrified, or were you just excited, or what was it like?
I think it was probably, I have this capacity to, I think, go into shock, but it appears like I'm totally in control. Not freaking out, not in the slightest bit perturbed by anything. So of course, acting class, especially method, is very self-indulgent. And you don't do anything until you truly feel like it. Well, you don't get to do that on a set unless you're like a major movie star. And even then, I'm not quite sure how much they get to do that. But first time on set was, I got to, they had moved me out, relocated me, as they say, from the network, had relocated me 1 week earlier. So I would have the chance to go and observe at General Hospital and to just watch how they did things. And of course, every day I would get there to observe quietly, but every day they'd hand me like a pile of scripts. They'd be like, and suddenly by my last week of observing, I had like 20 scripts for the following week, or for the following 2 weeks. So then I was all consumed just, reading them and memorizing them and trying to kind of just get a grasp on it. But first day on set, I think I was very fortunate because I was working with Finola, who I immediately got on. Finola Hughes, who plays Anna Devane, immediately got on very well with, but it was the nurses' ball, so it was the entire cast. It was all the great General Hospital cast all there, and she and I were kind of the focus of the nurses' ball because it was our coming together. But everybody was very supportive. I don't think I kind of started to freak out maybe until it got down to the nitty-gritty of memorizing, like 40 pages, going home at night and memorizing, getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning and going to the studio and just, rehearsing and trying, memorizing dialogue. And it got a little overwhelming, and then it just suddenly just became sort of routine, which was, the best part. That was the best, but it was hectic. The whole thing was pretty crazy, but I definitely, I don't think I could step into it now at this point in my life, because it's just it requires a lot of energy, a lot of stamina, a lot of patience. And I was very fortunate. People were very supportive, and I learned to be supportive of other people who were, coming in and starting, and, just because there's nothing worse than a frozen actor. So
is there a secret you had to memorizing? Because that's what I always think. Soap opera actors, they, like you said, every day it's new. It's not like, okay, table read. Okay, we're going to do the table read. Then you come back. We're going to rehearse in front of the live audience. We're going to tape on Friday. Or it's a lot different now where people don't even have to know the lines because with digital, they can just sit there and say it, and everything comes together. But for you and any soap actor, you have so much shit to learn. Like, it's not like, when you're in college, you don't have to memorize that stuff. Did you start, like, making mental things inside your head or tricks to remember stuff?
Well, it definitely is a muscle. I mean, and photographic memory is a muscle, but there are tricks. I think, there's little mnemonic pegs, as they say, that you kind of, if you have a speech and you sort of, there's maybe 4 words begin with P, so you just sort of focus on the P words, and then you kind of, it takes the pressure off, and it all depends on the writing. The writing is sort of good writing and kind of good story is actually a lot easier to memorize because it's easier just to live it and to make it kind of as honest as possible. And bad writing, on the other hand, it's very hard to memorize because as soon as you read it, you want to forget it. You don't want to be any part of it, but you don't get to kind of that's the classic actor thing. Who wrote this shit? And it's like, well,
now,
yeah.
You're on General, and of course, everyone back then watched soap operas. I mean, when I was in college, we watched all the soaps. I mean, there was a time that everybody, like in your dorm when you'd off time, Luke and Laura, or days your Bo Brady and Kim, all those things. So, are you suddenly now getting recognized on the street because? General Hospital is one of the most popular soaps ever. Do people sit there and go, "Oh, there's Duke Lavery"? Oh, or I mean, what does it change your life when you start being seen that much?
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember then. I think there might have been like a 3 or 4 week period between taping and airing, but we shot like from the beginning. Had started doing like a lot of magazine covers with Finola and I together. So they did like, it was a huge, not only was it airing, but it was on, kind of in supermarkets at all the checkouts were these covers. I mean, it was pretty instantaneous and it was, I mean, I definitely had a couple of like instances of, what are these people, what are you looking at? What are you looking at? What can I do for you? Like, stop it. So it sort of was a shift, an adjustment. So there was a lot of baseball caps and sunglasses, which I'd never really worn either of. So, but then obviously as soon as I spoke, or people would like, "Oh my God, like you're Duke Lavery." I was like, "Oh." But then it ceased being, the path of least resistance for me. I think I just sort of embraced it, and it just became part of my life and has been part of my life. It's nice not to be on television, I have to say, because people sort of look at me and think, maybe, do you work at Home Depot? Or are you work at Trader Joe's? And I'm like, yeah, that's it.
I got to ask you this because I don't get a chance to ask a lot of people this. But what is it like when you see yourself on a magazine? I mean, not when you model, but when you're seeing yourself on a soap opera, like you're just sitting there, hey, you're picking up cantaloupe. And all of a sudden you look over and you go,
oh, yeah.
Holy shit, what was your first reaction when that first happened? Because you probably saw your modeling. And it's different when you're modeling because there's not the attention. It's not saying Ian Buchanan is Duke Lavery. But what is it like that first time? It must freak you out. Like you're just sitting there, getting something and you go, oh, well, God, there's me.
Yeah, it's kind of conflicting impulses. The first is to kind of look at it and just ignore it. And the second is to pick it up and see what it says inside or what the photographs are like inside. And then I don't think I ever bought one. It was like so funny. I just couldn't the idea of actually sort of picking it up, putting it in the shopping basket or whatever and buying it. So I never did, but, at the studio, they would arrive, the magazines would arrive, so we'd have them we'd get them there. But actually, yeah, seeing them at the supermarket, I think I was sort of a little oddly detached, maybe. I mean, oddly detached only because I didn't want to appear to be like, oh my God, it's me. Hey, folks, look at this. Like, not just one, not two, there's three. Oh, wow. Like, because that would be disastrous. For me, it would be disastrous. So I would tend to just not pay attention. I would kind of side glance and see it, and then know I'd get to see it in the studio the following day or whenever the next time I was there. So
you're having this good career. Now, how does It's Garry Shandling show come about? Because once again, that was they broke down the third screen. That was him and Alan Zweibel that was a cutting edge show. I mean, the opening tune was sort of It's My Show, but that's all part of it. But how did
even if I think about that tune, it just starts in my head and just plays and plays.
So how did that come about? How did you go about? You were in soaps, getting then onto It's Garry Shandling show.
Well, we were on the same lot. In fact, Sunset Garry, he was on 2 stages away, and I met him just in transit, and he asked he said, I do comedy. I said, I don't know. I guess. And they asked me to go to a table read a couple of days later, and they had this character called Ian McFyfer, I think, Gary's next door neighbor and best friend. And after the table read, they kind of I don't even think it was an audition, but then I got booked. But then it was all about scheduling, so I'd do General Hospital in the morning, and then run next door and do Garry, and do the blocking or the run through in the afternoon, then go back and finish General Hospital in the evening. But come Monday and Tuesday evenings, I think Garry we taped on maybe a Tuesday, and we did 2 shows, but I had to be there the whole day for dress rehearsal and stuff. So it just became I was doing both at the same time, and only because of the proximity, the convenience of it, it kind of worked. And then Garry, there was a story where Gary's mom had told Garry she was sure his friend Ian was on her favorite soap opera, and Garry said, "No, he could never be. Like he's like she's like stupid. Like have you?" And she goes, "No, seriously." And so they rented or they took over the General Hospital soundstage and came and shot like part of Garry Shandling there, like using a lot of the Duke's like General Hospital friends, and it was a funny crossover. It was actually funny. It was kind of it was highly entertaining for me, but it was funny. I loved doing that. It was great fun. It got sometimes scheduling a little bit like crazy. But General Hospital had a big, they had a wedding or they had a big event, so we'd be there from 7 a.m. till 10 o'clock at night, and I had to basically escape part of the day and run over and do whatever I had to do at Shanley and then run back. So, and often the General Hospital stage manager would come running down through the Sunset Guard studio lot and come to the Shanley stage and come in and find me and say, you have to come back, and I'd have to leave, and so it was but it was madness and great fun. And
Did you acclimate to doing comedy well? I mean, was it easy? Because as you said, soap opera, it's you're learning lines upon lines. On this, Gary's the star, but it's a funny show. So did the timing come naturally to you, do you think, or did you have to sit there and study it a little bit before you said, okay, I really feel confident delivering these lines?
No, I kind of was pretty. Garry was very generous and, of course, very funny. And he taught me. He actually taught me a lot about comedy, and I only just by watching it and just being around him. But I got to improvise stuff, especially with his encouragement. And he had an expression which I'm not sure. Can I use a cuss word? Can I use? Are we adults? where he'd say, he always would whisper to me if I had done something, and then they'd say, okay, we're going to do it again. And he'd say, don't fuck with funny. Just don't fuck with it. Like, it's like, just don't blow it. Just like, so I learned that, which was kind of, and he had a little sort of quiet, like sort of eye signals and stuff like, don't blow the joke. We're going to do this again. Hang on. Don't like we're going to go again. So don't quiet, like save it for the audience. Don't let the audience like hear it. So, at one point he was encouraging me to go out and do stand up, and I was like, I just couldn't. At one time I did. I hosted improv at the Improv or whatever, and it was it wasn't funny. It wasn't written. And no offense to the person who wrote it, because he's actually a very successful comedian. But even when I see him, not recently, but of last, he'd say, "You never thought my writing was funny?" Then I said, "Well, it wasn't funny. It wasn't funny. I died. I could have I made the mistake of commenting on how unfunny it was just by basically, I don't know why I'm doing this. It's so not funny." Which was, it's the worst thing to do. So, I never had the stomach or the heart to do stand up. So,
well, it's funny. I just, you look in this certain time frame of your life where you're on, you're on General, and then it's Garry, Shandling. Then Twin Peaks comes along. Like that's like the biggest. That's like the three most far away shows ever. Like for an actor, you have chops because you get it. How did Twin Peaks come about? Because that was a show that took off, but people didn't know. Like back then, people were still conservative, but the viewers were like, "What? What? The girl's wrapping a cherry with her tongue? We don't who's Laura Palmer? It's still like that Midwest. No offense to the Midwest, but it's still that Midwestern mentality. Like, what the hell is that? How did Twin Peaks come along? It was something I wasn't aware of Twin Peaks, really, the fuss around it, but I was doing a pilot, shooting a pilot, and we were shooting it for a week. It was another comedy, and I was doing it with Alice, the girl from Moonlighting, Alice Beasley.
Alice Beasley, yes. I was doing this pilot with Alice Beasley, which was kind of fun, but it was like kind of long hours. And I don't think we had cell phones then. I can't remember how we communicated with people. But I got a call on the Thursday or a message on the Thursday saying I'd been booked for the weekend to do a Calvin Klein obsession campaign, not just me, with other people. But I was booked to do it with Lara Flynn Boyle, and it was being directed by David Lynch. So I kind of worked until super late on the Friday, finishing the pilot, and got up on the Saturday and went off, and we shot. I don't think they worked Saturday, Sunday. I worked only Saturday with Lara Flynn. And David directed it, and I met him, and it was a very nice experience, and he sort of asked if I knew Twin Peaks, but he kind of said, "I'm going to character you. You'll make a really good dick." And I was like, "Well, I don't know what that means." And he was like, "Well, we should maybe come. You should come see me on Tuesday." And I was like, "Okay." So I went to see him. Went Joanna Ray, who became a very dear friend of mine, who cast Twin Peaks. And she'd also cast the commercial, which was sort of, not very nice. And I went to meet him on the Tuesday, and they gave me a script there, 3 pages, 4 pages, because nobody ever got a full script. And I read the script, and they were like, "Great, we'll get you on board." So I think I started within the week and did Twin Peaks, which all my friends were way more excited than I was, because they'd already been watching it, were huge fans. And they thought it was the best thing in the world. That like you said, oh my God, it's like Shanley, Twin Peaks, so it was a great experience. I absolutely loved it. I loved it. I loved I loved working with David. I loved working with Kimmy Roberts and wonderful Harry Goes, and both still friends of mine. And all the guest directors were great. Leslie, Linka Glader, and just these wonderful rotating people, same crew, but rotating, wonderful directors who all went on to, David gave them all, opportunities, as he did with, a lot of the cast. Not all the cast, because a lot of the cast had been major stars in the 50s and 60s and 70s. So it was a combination of brand new people and all these great, vintage people. So it was a great, the wonderful Piper Laurie, and it was great. I had the best time. Every single day was just like fun from beginning to end. So, and the great, wonderful David Landers, Squiggy from Laverne and Shirley. He and I got to do a lot of stuff together, and we've done 3 shows together, which is just amazing.
I was going to ask you, when I looked through your IMDb, I have never heard of On the Air, but that was a pilot. That was 7 episodes. But it's funny though, because you think Frost created it with David Lynch, okay? So they're known people. So what happened to that show? Was that just something that they told you to come on? Because what was the show about?
Well, I was doing, Miguel Ferrer was doing Twin Peaks, the wonderful Miguel Ferrer. And David created this pilot for Miguel and I, which was a great honor and great opportunity. And it was a 50s live television variety show. And it starred a washed-up UK actor who'd come to the States and kind of hadn't made it, had been basically kicked out of Hollywood, and this ZBC network, Zaplotnik, decided he was the best thing in the world and wanted to do this variety show around him. So that's what it was about, On the Air. And the premise was I think it was each episode was 28 minutes maybe, but the first half of the show was all the rehearsal and the preparation, the table read and the introduction of the guest stars, some were just amazing, and then the whole dress rehearsal, and then the second half was when it went live on the air, and of course all hell break loose, and shit would hit the fan, and it just would be chaotic, and the little show became a huge success because it was awful. Of course, behind the scenes, there were things going on with Twin Peaks winding down, and there were kind of network politics and personality clashes. So all of that was playing out as we were, in our own little bubble of On the Air, which we loved. Nancy Ferguson, Miguel, the joke was you should not have so much fun because it never will go too well. And we all had so much fun. We loved it. Couldn't wait to go to work, and worked very hard. And I'm not sure how many episodes aired. I think 3 maybe. And there were 6 nobody had ever seen. And then people got to see them. And in Japan, they were released on that big disc, that Blu-ray or whatever it was called. And they became a huge hit in Japan and other places, and a big cult favorite. But not many people have seen them, and they're funny. I mean, I've seen most of them, and they held up pretty well. A lot of great character people, and it was great fun. I loved it. Great fun. So
now,
whenever I see David, he actually, because he would only ever call me Dick, which he refers to people by their character name. So I got to, On the Air, I played Lester, Guy. So anytime I've seen him, he always calls me Lester, which is much better than having this person yell across the room, Dick! So Lester is it's better.
Okay. You've been on so many soaps. Now, you were on The Bold and the Beautiful for over 570 episodes. Where was that chronologically in your career? Because whenever you want to try to do research, you can never tell because you were on, you were off. Because people come on shows like, was Bold and Beautiful your second? Was that after your
Yeah.
original GH?
I was on General Hospital initially, 86 through 89.
Now, why'd you leave? Is it just...
I think my management only sort of felt I should be on a soap for 3 years. I got an offer to go to England to do the first revival of the play The Heiress, which had been a play and a movie. And also I had Shandling to come back to the States after. So I left, went to England, did the play for the summer, came back, did Shandling, did a little bit of General Hospital, then I think I did like Columbo and then Twin Peaks, and that sort of took me into early 90s. And then I guested on probably every television show, the Nanny, the Quantum Leap, like that. Every week.
What is it like, because you came from being on the Shanley show and being a soap star, what is it like when you walk on it? I've heard different stories. Some actors say they walk on the set and everybody's so great, and then some they walk on the set and there's a bunch of pricks. I mean, what was your? Some of them they always go. It's always someone like the ones who are already established are always nice because the crew knows the show's not going anywhere. Like they say, if you guest on NCIS, those guys are set. That show will go on forever. You walk in, everyone's a well-oiled machine. People know they all have their pensions coming because they've been working on a show for 20 years. Was there, and we won't mention the shows, but was there any real nightmare experiences you had when you were a guest?
Yeah. It's lonely. There was one show I have to say, like it wasn't until, and I was probably there for shooting for 5 days, and it wasn't until the late at night on the fourth day that I kind of felt like people were a little warmer. But the other thing I realized, if you're a guest star, you're usually the person you've killed somebody, or you've done, so you're treated like, you're treated like the outcast anyway. So, you sit basically, and I've had that experience a couple of times, and I will not mention the shows, but you sit kind of as the loneliest thing in the world, and I'm not somebody who ever gets lonely, but to sit in a trailer like for hours and not, you can't go and knock on somebody else. It's not like, being on a soap opera where you can jump from one room to another and sit and, kibitz for 30 minutes and all be, part of the energy and part of the, you are isolated. You're kept isolated. Nobody wants to speak to you. Nobody wants to get to know you because they do that every week, unless they happen to be a generous person who knows that it is exactly what it is. I have, but then I've had great experiences. I've had wonderful experiences, where and I did the Nanny. It was like Fran was a big Duke Lavery fan. Who knew? I was like, and she was so excited that I was there. Just so excited. Like, she got to kiss Duke Lavery. And I was like, oh, please, don't make a fuss about it. It's like, but other play, yeah. But then, of course, Bold and Beautiful came along, which was, I was doing another revival of a play here in Hollywood, Equus, and I was playing psychiatrist. And they had a role of a psychiatrist coming up, and Frank Tobin, who was the Bold and Beautiful publicist and a wonderful publicist, has become a great friend of mine. He brought Bradley Bell to see the play, which, of course, Richard Dysart in Equus was the furthest thing from James Warwick, but I guess it was, psychiatrist, and Brad sort of liked me, and I got offered the contract. So I went there and had the best time. But it lasted for 18 years, I think. 93, 2000, full-time, and then recurring until 3-4 years ago. So.
And now you won a Daytime Emmy for that, right?
I did, yes.
So what's that like? Do you still have it? Like, do you sit there and
I
go,
do.
"This is Miami"? Because some people
No.
hide their rewards. Yeah, I interview a lot of musicians. Musicians always have their gold records up. They always, because I think they didn't make hardly any money off them because they're getting screwed by the record companies. But they always have them thing. But do you still have your daytime Emmy?
Of course I do. Yeah, I have my Soap Opera Digest awards. I have my Daytime Emmys. I have my I have a lot of. I have one little one out here for like a little short film I did. Only it's the only thing I have out. It's funny. I was nominated probably like 6 times, I think, but no, I think I won on the third nomination. But even when I won the Emmy, even now, I don't understand how acting became a competitive sport. I've never understood that. It's like nobody's playing the same role. It's not like Star Search where they all had the same scene to play. That I understand. But like for acting, it's all like so completely like. So the competitiveness of it never appealed to me. The whole fever around it never really appealed to me. I loved, in those days, I loved Emmy Week, which was in New York, and the Emmys were Radio City Music Hall, and the whole lead-up was just, morning shows and, cocktail parties in the evening and seeing this whole, there were 15 shows, or 14 or 15 shows at the time. So the community was huge, and it was amazing because all the West Coast people went to the East Coast, and we'd all like mingle and see each other, and it was wonderful. And there were the 3 networks, all had like major shows, and all the networks would host events and stuff. And people from like ABC would get the biggest party because they had the most shows, and people from CBS would try to like, oh, can you invite me to your party? Can I come meet the CBS people? So it was just a great sort of the wonderful community. So I loved that. Loved those days. Loved all of that. But now that the whole world is down to 4 shows, it's a very different kind of. It's just a very different milieu and very. So I look forward to seeing all the people that I worked with on Friday because I hadn't seen them for so long. Oh, apart from who have I seen? Vincent Azaria I've seen more recently. We did something, so I've seen him, but I haven't seen Bobby Eakes for a long time.
Well,
Adrian Franz.
Now, you were on Bold and Beautiful for a long time. When did All My Children come in? Like, did you leave and do that, or because you were recurring? You're not allowed to be on 2 different soap operas at one time, are you?
You can now, I think, especially if you're recurring. I think there are people, I have friends now who I think doing Days of Our Lives and Young and the Restless. No, I was not. I hadn't been on Bold and Beautiful for a little while, but I'd done Port Charles. And my friend Julie Carruthers, who produced Port Charles, which was a spin-off of General Hospital, and then she went to All My Children, and she asked if I'd come there and do a year or maybe more, depending on how it worked out. And I was, yes, of course I'll come to New York. I had no idea that I was going to be playing probably the most unpopular character on daytime television, the person who undid the very famous Erica Kane abortion, which I knew nothing about. So I always joked about it because when Julie was obviously telling me, all I could hear was New York for a year, and I was like, yes, I'll take Manhattan, I'll take it. I didn't hear the part about taking the fetus until I had been there. Then I was like, good Lord, like, how's this going to play? Like, people are, yes, took the fetus, saved the fetus, implanted it in my wife, and just people were furious, like just furious.
Now, could you imagine if social media was so big then? You would have been getting death threats. Like, people would have been. I mean, people who don't understand before social media. You would bet you get off at your water cooler, or you see someone, you go, oh. But just think now, especially because this country's so divided. But people would have been like, because the problem is a lot of times people can't separate Ian with the character, and they think it's all the same. I mean, have you ever thought like what that character would have gone through now? Did you ever get hate mail for that character?
I don't know. I don't think I probably didn't pay attention to it, but I think I was fortunate because I think a lot of fans thought it was just a kind of crazy little phase I was going through.
Now
to play this kind of
but
just to play this totally warped like gynecologist. I was like,
were you there for the whole year, or did you leave?
I was there for the year. I think a little more than a year actually. Yeah, and then
you end up on Days. How did Days come about? Because Days once again.
I think I was back from New York probably for less than a year, and then I got a call saying Days of Our Lives are interested. Are you interested? And I think I obviously had to think about it because my first response was, I don't know if I have another soap opera in me, actually. I don't really. So I took a couple of days to kind of think about it, and then I think the whole deal got a little sweeter. And I was like, oh, yeah, why not? And I did that. It was it was a very interesting experience to step into kind of an established show with an established cast and go in and play a brand new character and be, immediately sort of connected with, well-loved characters, and also to be a bad guy. And I think that was the thing that I was a little kind of cautious of. I didn't mind playing bad guys on primetime or playing bad guys in movies, or because it's always fun to play the villain. But to go in every day and almost hear the crew sort of hiss and boo as you walk, because just jokingly, of course, but to hiss and boo with tongue in cheek, because you're messing with one of their well-loved, like leading ladies, or so it was I had a lot of fun. It was very challenging, but I had a lot of fun, and it was the beginning of the hectic scheduling, which really forced me to up my game, and I learned a lot of things there that they were doing, like. That's when they started doing like 2 shows a day, and they were like, 1-hour shows. And they had this wonderful lady who would come around, like, you try to, in the makeup room, like, learn your dialogue with the people you were working with that day, but you never had time. And it was always timed perfectly with this wonderful lady who'd been, I think, an actress on General Hospital, would come to your dressing room like 15 minutes before you were called to set. It would go through your stuff, and anything she recognized you were not grasping, she would give you great tips, and that's all you thought about. So it was great. I was very grateful for that, as were they, because I kind of didn't, there was a lot of dialogue, and it was great time. I loved working with Lauren Koslow. We had a lot of fun. So, it was Days of Our Lives. And then Days of Our Lives ended, and I got a call from General Hospital saying, do you want to come back as Duke? And I was like, wow, I never thought that would ever happen. But Duke there was a twist to it, which I was not told until I was there for a little bit. But then I was playing Duke with a Duke mask, and it was somebody else playing him. But
now, in all these soaps, because you were a model, and I've seen you on Facebook, you're a dapper, I would say a dapper gentleman. Do you have any input on what you wore? Like, because you were on for a while, did you say, this is how I want to dress? This is what my character wants? Or did they just say, here you go, here's what Duke's wearing this week? Or did you ever have input on what the outfits you would wear?
I think I think people had an idea of what I would look best in, and I always sort of trusted that. Sometimes I think it was a little off, but most of the time I think it was right. I was very lucky. Like, they always kind of, would always, like, I liked, always would get great stuff and tailor it. And, sometimes, but sometimes when it was being casual, I questioned, like, big sort of floppy sweaters and stuff. And I was like, I don't know so much about this, but they liked it. The audience seemed to like it. But I always liked when they kind of dressed me up. The joke always was then, but apparently it's always been a joke in Hollywood, like, have accent, have ascot. So always, like, any chance they get, they put like and they're like, what is this? I don't like this. They're like, well, we like it. It works. And I'm like, oh, I don't like it. I just don't like it. But, I think on Bold and Beautiful, I wore an ascot. I think on Twin Peaks, of course, I was always wearing ascots, like on, so very, funny.
Now, I noticed on your Instagram, you have a lot of pictures of flowers. Are you a gardener? Because it's something, I don't know, I don't know if you know the band English Beat, but Dave Wakeman, the lead singer, he's a big gardener. He always does, he does, and he's from the UK. Are they your flowers, or do you just see a nice flower and you take a picture?
No, I see them as I walk a lot, and I live in California, and I see a lot of flowers. And I have a roof garden, but I kind of, because of the heat, it's just very hard to kind of grow flowering things. There's best succulents and cactus and stuff. But I see flowers. Like when I walk, I kind of like everything is I see flowers and photograph them. And even the supermarket or Trader Joe's, if I see flowers, I photograph them. So people like them. So I like it. I love them. I love flowers.
Now, you've had a very long career. What would you say is the highlight of your career or life? Because you've been very successful. You've worked in an industry that a lot of people don't work as much as you. You've done popular soaps. You've done a groundbreaking sitcom. You did groundbreaking drama. So you've had a really good career. You did theater in London. But looking back, what do you say is, what's been the highlight of your life? I mean, has it been your work, or what's been the highlight of your life?
Well, I feel very fortunate. I just feel very fortunate. I've been lucky, I think, but I even enjoyed COVID. I enjoyed staying home, like, more than I didn't realize that. I did sort of get to a point like 4 or 5 years ago. I was, would be on stage doing a play and be like, totally engrossed in the play, but I think I'd much rather be at home. And I started to feel that way. Then suddenly along came COVID, and I had no choice. I had to stay at home, and I liked it. I liked the peace. I liked the not having to deal with, 6 o'clock in the morning. I liked not having to deal with a lot of personalities. I liked not having to deal with the politics of just making the day work. I liked that part. So I'm liking this part as well too. Just not the strike part, but the just seeing what's going on, seeing what's out there. I think during the whole shutdown, I sort of realized how introverted I am. And I thought it was a little surprised, but I knew I was was a little shy, but I am an introvert. A lot of people who are performers and actors are introverted, but you just put yourself out, and that takes a huge amount of energy. And I didn't realize that most of my life, all of my energy had gone into just making the effort to handle it. So I kind of liked the quietness. I liked it maybe a little too much. So the whole sort of opening up and wakening up part of it has been interesting. So as you know, I'll see this week and when other things come up, just how I sort of deal with it. I may just throw my hands in there and say, I would rather be at home, by the way.
I have one final question for you. Tell me one of your best crazy fan experiences. Something that happened to you with a fan that you went and probably looked back and went, holy shit, I can't believe that just happened.
I do remember, but it was. I was in New York setting up my apartment, and I walked over to Bed Bath & Beyond, which was on 6th Avenue, and I was in the West Village on the water. And Bed Bath & Beyond had 2 floors. They had you walked in, they had the first floor, and then they had the basement, which had stuff. And I went down to the basement, and it was very quiet, and there were 2 people working there, and they sort of said, can we help you? And I said, well, no, I'm looking for it. And I told them, as we kind of were in a little huddle, somebody coming down, like you could put your shopping trolley on this kind of escalator thing that would bring your shopping trolley down, and you came down the regular escalator. And this woman put her trolley on the thing, and she misjudged it, so the trolley kind of fell down on its side, and everything tumbled out and came down the thing. And she came down the escalator, and 3 of us looking, and she looked at me, and she said, Doctor! Doctor! And the 2 guys said, you know this person? I said, no, I play a doctor on television, but I don't know. And she made such a fuss, and her stuff had fallen all over the place. And I always think of that as being just one of those I've had many situations like that, but I've never had anybody slap me or I had somebody throw a drink on me once, but that was just like, people, it's fans are good. My fans have been wonderful, very supportive. And,
Well, thank you, Ian. This is great for having you on. I really love your stories. Now, I know you're very active on social media. You're on Twitter? You're on Instagram?
Well, X. Twitter is now X.
Oh, X. I know. I swear to God. I was just... My phone changed. My wife's didn't until the other day. She's like, oh, it's X now. I was going to tweet something the other night, and I couldn't find on my phone. I'm so used to that damn blue bird.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the... And the thing is, I'm saying, it's a shitty-looking X. It's not even like something like,
no,
ooh.
I love the bird. Little bird was kind of... I like the whole idea that... But, yeah. So, no, I'm on X or whatever it is. Also on Threads, which I kind of, was encouraged to cross over. But I'm not quite sure how that's working. I keep getting notifications that some people are following me, so I thought automatically Instagram posts would be posted on Threads, but not at the moment. Maybe that'll come. On Instagram also and Facebook, so I'm sort of on all of them. I'm pretty attentive to all of them and responsive.
So people, go follow Ian. Go follow me at Twitter, at X, that's at Cooper Talk, at Instagram and Threads, at Cooper Talk 1, because someone took Cooper Talk. And you can go to my Facebook, Cooper Talk Radio. Also, if you want to email me, it's cooper@coopertalk.net. Remember, I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guest. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I'll talk to you next time.